So here I am with Matt Graham, and I think Erik Rossmann will join us soon, at least I hope so. And we're going to talk about co-working spaces and mini offices because Erik and his team have bought a very interesting office building at 227 Montcalm, correct?
Correct.
And what I did was I put together a few slides, which I'm going to share my screen with you, Matt. And I want to show you some of the projects that I've been involved with over the years. Can you see my screen okay?
I can, yes, perfect.
All right, I'm going to move your face over here. What happened to my title? Oh, there we are. So I've been involved in this industry for a very long time. The first set of mini offices and co-working spaces that I set up was back in the 1980s. So that's a long time ago. And we weren't sure if mini offices and co-working spaces, there was any demand for it. So somebody said we should hire a marketing agency to study whether they're to do some market research. And I wasn't really keen on that because market research often is a bit of guesswork. So what we did instead, Matt, was we ran some classified ads this is back in the day before the internet. So we ran some classified ads in the local newspaper saying, shared office space, mini office space available. And we actually put a phone, believe it or not, in a cupboard, because this is the day when it was, very primitive technology compared to what we have today. So we had an actual phone in a cupboard with a tape machine. And so we wanted to see how many people would call. And it was incredible how many people called. We would, every day or every couple of days, one of my staff would go and monitor this. And he would say, we got another 3 calls today. And in those ads, Matt, we actually put in the price and everything, So it was a little bit of vaporware, if you understand what I'm talking about. But it definitely tended to indicate that people were willing to at least consider renting mini offices, co-working spaces, and pulling real money out of their jeans and paying for it. So let's go to the next one. So what we ended up doing is we became the largest mini office provider in Eastern Ontario. This is a building downtown called Heritage Place, and we equipped floors 9 and 10 of the building with mini offices. And they were beautiful. So back then, they were fully furnished. They had, obviously telephone service. They had fax machines. They were all, that was the rage back in the 80s. We have fax machines. So, today it's email, of course. But anyway, we had fax machines. We had photocopiers. We even had a typing pool, if you could believe it, because, it was the early days of personal computers. So we had floors 9 and 10 with a beautiful feature stair connecting them. So we actually retrofitted the building to put a feature stair between the 2 buildings. So we didn't want to have 2 reception areas. So we had 1 reception area on the 9th floor. You would go, let's say I was coming to visit you, and you were in these mini offices or co-working space. I go to the 9th floor, and then if you were on the 10th floor, you just walk down the feature stairs and we'd go back to your office or into a meeting room. Are you following me so far?
Yep.
All right, so it was called Terrace Corporate Centres Limited, TCCL for short, Terrace Corporate Centres Limited, executive mini office. And we had 120 mini offices downtown that kind of looked like this on the right-hand side. And then we had another, I think 44 executive offices on the 4th floor of another building we built in the west end of Ottawa. So we had about 164 mini offices in 2 locations. It was very successful. And you'll see on this screen here that we averaged around 92 to 96% occupancy. And this was over, a couple of decades. So I don't think we ever fell below 92%, and we were usually around 94, 95, 96% occupied. And occasionally we were over 100% occupied. And people would say, well, how the heck can you be over 100% occupied? Well, what we did was, you can see on the screen here, is we bought a bunch of library kiosks, those little things that you see in the university libraries. Not that many people go to libraries these days, but we would buy those and we would stuff them in the nooks and crannies because we'd have people on a waiting list and they just were desperate for a place to, put their, to hang out. And so sometimes we ended up with about 102 or 103% of capacity. We actually had more people there than we had room for. And it was quite profitable. So this is going back to the 90s now. We were making, after paying all of our expenses, about $20,000 a month running these two locations. And then I got into a problem with as I went to refinance these buildings of mine, the bank, in this case, it was the Royal Bank, the RBC, refused to accept that the leases on floors 9 and 10 of Heritage Place and 4th floor of the Royal Bank Pavilion in Bell's Corners, they refused to accept those leases. They said, well, they're short term, they're 6 months or month to month, or they're 1 year. And we had some that were like 2 or 3 years, but they're all short term. And they said, we're not going to accept them. So if you're doing a refinancing, Matt, and I'm sure you understand this, providing income is very, very important to your lender. All right. So I was really stumped because, basically, I think Heritage Place was 23 floors or something like that. You take 2 floors out, you basically have removed 10% of your income. And
so Bruce, I'm confused though. If you have it listed as a separate company and you have a separate company that's providing a flat, I'm not understanding your statements here, by the way, but if you say we lease it to Obu, or Terrace leases it to this company, and this company collects $20 a month. What is that? What is 20K per month? That's revenue from the total, or what's that from?
So the 20,000 a month was actually a profit. We were making that. I look at cash. I think cash is more important than the accounting definition of profit. And I think Warren Buffett would agree with me, Erik.
So why wouldn't you just make a lease and fix per floor area that is high enough for the bank but lower than your cost, and just give them the lease and say, here's the lease, fuck you. Like, why wouldn't you just do that instead?
Well, in fact, that's exactly what we did. But okay, you're way ahead of me as usual, Erik. But what happened in this case was I didn't come up with that idea. Wayne Kendall, who was a banker for the Royal Bank of Canada, suggested exactly that. So what we did, Matt, was we wrote a lease from Terrace Investments Limited, which was the parent company, to Terrace Corporate Centres Limited, which was a subsidiary. So basically, we're leasing from ourselves to ourselves. But the bank said that's perfectly fine. And so we did a 10-year lease with 2 5-year two 5-year options. So it's a 20-year period from Terrace Investments Limited to Terrace Corporate Centres Limited. And then, so TCCL, what I'm saying here, Erik, is Terrace Corporate Centres, the subsidiary, showed at the end of pretty much every year about a $250,000 bottom line profit. So they were paying, so Matt, what they were doing is they were paying the same lease rate as other people in the building, but then they were marking it up and subleasing it or subletting it. All right. And so one of the things that you would do here, and Erik, I think you and I have already talked about it with Matt over email, is whatever you call this co-working space, it will have its own profit and loss statement. It will be a separate business, exactly as you said. And it works incredibly well. All right. Something else that you may not understand about this business is that a lot of startups will start up in your incubator, in your co-working space, and they will grow. Some of them will fail, but many of them will grow. And I remember back in the 80s, one of our tenants was a small company that nobody had ever heard of from California called Apple. They started in Heritage Place with 2 mini offices, a salesperson and a technician. So they send in a regional sales manager and a technician to sell to the government of Canada. And sure enough, they grow. And so if you have some companies like that in your portfolio, they're going to want more space from you, Matt. Do you understand?
Yep.
All right. Stop me anytime if I'm going too fast or I'm not being clear. So one of the things I'm going to ask you to do, Erik and Matt, is think of a name for this place. So our name was, the parent company was Terrace Investments Limited, and the subsidiary was called Terrace Corporate Centres Limited. And what you want to have, Matt, is you want to have a name, and you also want to have a tagline. So you can see our tagline is up on the screen here. It was great space for great people. All right. I'm not saying you would use that. I mean, you come up with your own, and it has to be, of course, in French. And crucial to you, Matt, if you're going to be managing this, is what is your magic marketing button? I always keep this thing handy.
That was easy.
I don't like businesses where you need to run Super Bowl ads before you get your first client. That's not easy. So
actually, you were talking about this, Bruce.
Yep.
There is this whole area, the foundry and what's around it, including where we're in, is targeted by the city of Gatineau and the government of Quebec to be a huge tech hub. It's called the Innovation Zone, or
Yep.
Connexité is the name. I'm going to send you guys both a link right now to look at. We could call it, for example, Connexité Phase 1, number 1, or something. I would recommend, because they're refurbishing the whole back end of what's it called, of the foundry, and people are having to wait. So you might be able to get in touch with the guy that's in charge of Connexité and get us started early on there. I'm going to send this to you.
I love that idea, Eric, and you'll see in my slides in a few minutes that I was anticipating something like that. Anyway,
it's already in the works. It's a big deal. It's all over the news.
It's huge. It's huge. I mean, I really like this acquisition, Eric. I think it's going to be enormously successful. So anyway,
so too. We just got to convince the stupid banks we're basically closed for business unless you're looking for a car loan or a house mortgage.
Yeah, I know that. We're going to work on that too. So anyway, back in the day, as I mentioned earlier, Matt, we used classified advertising in newspapers, but obviously that's long gone. So today it's very simple stuff for filling up co-working space. You want to be in Kijiji, Facebook. TikTok is huge for this kind of thing. A little bit of YouTube exposure. Email still works, believe it or not. And something else, Eric, I think it's important for you to put at least a couple of your offices on MLS. You get yourself a good realtor in Quebec. I'm sure you have a few, and put an office or an office and a couple of workstations, so you have a little bigger offering on MLS. Because believe it or not, that actually works for this kind of thing. So
my own office, like Rossmann Architecture.
No, what I'm talking about is you'll see the pictures I have in here a little bit later. There already are on the ground floor some offices. And so let's say you're asking $900 for an office. All right. So I would ask my realtor to put it on MLS, office for lease, $900 plus HST. Something like that. Right. And then you'd also put on MLS another listing where you would take an office and say 3 workstations and say, now I've got room for 4 or 5 people and maybe each workstation you're renting for $500 a month. I'm just making up the numbers. So now you have something on MLS that will be $900 plus $1,500. So you'll have something like around $2,400, $2,500, which will accommodate 4 or 5 people. And that works. You probably will have somebody, Matt, in your network who's good at writing en français. I would blog like crazy about this too, because it's going to be fantastic. And then
I have that ability. We already have somebody here.
I'll bet you do.
I can work with Alicia, and we can.
Yep. And then the other thing I think is really important here is outside signage, and you'll see that on this on this street view that I looked at it. So one of the things that's fantastic about this building is that you can put some window decals on it. And Matt, you probably know that there are window decals that are translucent so that you get light in. You don't want to put like something that's
that's a great idea. Are you going to send this to us?
Yes, I'm going to share the slide
You
deck.
know, and there's even a little space for a little coffee shop, eh? There's a coffee shop in the corner there. You could almost lease that out to a commercial coffee shop when this is bustling enough. And you could even put a front door there. What's this service
You and I
contract?
think a lot alike, Eric. We're on the same page. But anyway, look at the area that you have available for signage on this property. So window decals, you can do lots of that, and you can have tremendous amount of sign bands. And you notice here, Matt, that I call this Centre Montcalm. I just made that up. I call it Montcalm Center, Centre Montcalm. And you notice how I have at least one sign band that you might make available to a sponsor, because there'll be a lot of people who will want to associate themselves with this. Banks, accounting firms, anybody who helps startups or small companies will want to be associated with it. So you may
I
have
don't know
some.
if you noticed, Bruce, but you could put decals at the bottom, but you could even put decals along the top band as well.
100%. So I mean, I just did this to give you guys some
Like
idea.
two rows, like Rossmann architecture, I would probably put at the top, right?
Oh yeah, Rossmann will be up on the top. The other thing you'll notice here that is incredibly effective. I mean, I'm all about simple math. Okay, I don't like complicated stuff. Do you know what a sandwich board sign is, Matt? So you can see I did that here. You should get one. They're super cheap, and you put it out every morning, and it just says, Montcalm Center, Centre Montcalm, and you just, shared space or whatever. Those things are dynamite. All right, so that's enough about signage. So I was trying to come up with a tagline for you guys. So I asked the AI, I asked Skynet, ChatGPT, and they ChatGPT came up with 3 taglines. I don't like any of them. Collaborate, create, co-work, unleash your productivity in our shared space. That's way too long. Unlock your potential, collaborate, co-create, collaboration unleashed, where ideas meet success. I didn't like any of them, so I made up one of my own. Centre Montcalm, and I'm not sure if I got the French right.
Yeah.
Working together.
I think that's good.
All right, listen, these are just placeholders. If you hate them, throw them out.
So you're gonna send us this PowerPoint presentation after?
I am. I'm going to Dropbox it to you and Matt.
Thanks.
You don't have to take any notes because, Eric, you should know we're recording this, okay?
Okay.
So you'll have a recording of it too. Maybe Matt will train some people one day using it, but it's unlisted, so it'll only be available to the 3 of us. All right. So I came up with that. I thought working together was a beautiful, tagline for you guys. Centre Montcalm. I don't know. Is travailler ensemble? Is that correct? Good. That's a miracle. I got that right. I wanted to also, Eric, tell you and Matt about something else that is super friggin' hot. And that is to be able to offer not only co-working space, but maybe an apartment to live as well. A tremendous number, especially if you're going towards tech, which I suspect is a really good move because that's about the only group right now that seems to have any money. Is that people are finding it very difficult if they're coming into, say, Gatineau for 3 months to do a project for the city or for the government or the province, whatever.
How about this, Shane? How about this, Bruce? The office right now, because we're going to be moving to the top floor there. Our office, where we're now, 88 St. Joseph, we have 4 buildings there. Okay, what we could do is offer some executive. So we'll have 4 apartments plus 3, 4 plus. How many apartments is there? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 plus 4, we got 8 apartments and an additional 2,000 square feet of office space at our current office. So we can make more executive offices at 88 St. Joseph, plus approximately another 4.
I'm telling you, Rossmann, you're going to make a lot of money doing this. I mean,
we can all tie together at that point.
It is fantastic. So I just wanted.
This comes with a parking lot. And right next on the parking lot, next to it, there's a 3-plex that we can rent that way as well. So the whole thing could become like a bustle. It'll away, right? Less than 2-minute walk.
It'll be an incredible hub. So this is what we did, Matt, back in the day. We combined Terrace Corporate Centres Limited, the co-working spaces and mini offices, with something we called PETA. PETA doesn't stand for people eating tasty animals. It stands for Presidential Executive Travel Apartments. We used to get kidded a lot about that because it's actually PETA stands for People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
Yeah.
And then people used to kid me and say PETA stands for People Eating Tasty Animals, which I've done once or twice. So what we did was we established these apartments. You can see this is Holland Cross. Eric, do you know Holland Cross? Anyway, do you know Holland Cross, Matt?
I do very well.
Yep. So what we did was we bought all of the condominiums at Holland Cross on the ground floor. Nobody else wanted them, but we wanted them because they had individual entrances from the outside. So we were Airbnb before there was Airbnb. And so somebody, a business executive, could come to Ottawa, work in one of our corporate centers and live in one of our travel apartments. And again, it was, all equipped, telephone, cable TV, fax machines, all furnished. It was really nice. But they could come at 2 o'clock in the morning and they didn't have to go into the tower, and they didn't upset people, by coming in at 2 or 3 in the morning or whatever. So this was a very successful thing. And I bought these 16 ground floor condos from the developer, Robert Berger. And back then we didn't have digital locks, but we had lock boxes. So it was very simple. And somebody would come from, California or from Boston, and they could come in at any time of the day. They were obviously furnished. They had, basically ready to go. We also provided cleaning services, but I wanted to show you the numbers too. So these are medium-term rentals, Matt. Are you following me?
Yeah. 100%.
So that means that we did not do, and we would not do like 2 or 3 night stays. That we're not interested in that. I'm not running a hotel. So we would do minimum stays of 30 days. So medium-term rentals, generally speaking, are between 30 days and probably 6 months. And we would not do long-term rentals because we didn't want to be subject to the Residential Tenancy Act. All right. And we did not want to do super short rentals either, because it just wasn't our business model. And that's a lot of work. So we would do 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and 180 days, but no longer than 180, because we did not want to tangle with the Residential Tenancy Act. In Quebec, I believe, as long as you're 30 days or longer, you do not require a license from Quebec to run an Airbnb. So you could put your units on Airbnb or Vacation Rental by Owner or Booking.com, and as long as they're 30 days or more, you're not required to license. That's my understanding. So apartments back then were renting in the 90s for $1,200, but look what we were getting. Back then, that was quite a bit of money, $3,000 a month. We used them for the Senators players when we made trades and they were coming in. And we also combined them, as I mentioned, with Terrace Corporate Centres. When people were coming to town, they would rent an office from us and a travel apartment. It was a fantastic business. And we ended up with, I think, 28 units, 16 at Holland Cross and 12 more townhouses in Bell's Corners. What I liked about this business, and what I like about the corporate center business as well, the mini offices, it's not too management intensive. You get very high quality tenants. You don't tend to get people where you're going to have a problem with collecting rent. There wasn't much competition back then. And even today, believe it or not, there's lots of competition in the Airbnb space, the 3-day stay, but there's not that much competition, at least I found, in the medium-term rental space. And we developed long-term relationships with our tenants. They kept coming back year after year after year as they came back to do new assignments in Ottawa. And if we ever wanted an exit strategy for this particular business, it was easy. You could just sell the units. And as I said, the leases were mostly 30 to 90 days. And we didn't have any damage to the units, almost nothing. I mean, a visiting executive, maybe he brings his wife and his kid, or comes alone. I mean, they're working all the time, and they don't tend to, have drunken brawls and wreck your place. So unfortunately, when I was getting ready to bid for the Ottawa Senators, Matt, I sold several thousand acres of land, dozens of office buildings and shopping plazas, and I sold Terrace Corporate Centres Limited too. If I could go back in time, Eric, I wouldn't have done that. Anyway, I sold it to Terrace Corporate Centres Limited, was sold to a company that became TCC Canada, which, if you follow it, is a very successful company today. They took over the entire Shopify building on Elgin Street. I don't know if you guys know that. That entire building, which is big and it's beautifully fit up, is now owned by TCC, not owned, is now leased by TCC Canada for co-working space. So this is a big industry today. All right, let's look at some of the pictures here. So Matt, what I would need you to do, you and I are going to build a spreadsheet for Erik to review, a spreadsheet of what this is going to look like, what the return on investment is going to look like, okay? To do that, I need you to tell me, just on a spreadsheet, it's very simple, just how many workstations you have, right? So workstations, we got 18 of them. How many private offices do you have?
So do you think this furniture is good though, or do you think we'll probably have to replace the furniture, right? This is a pretty
so
cheap
initial
call center. This is call center furniture. Was it call
no,
center?
I don't think so, Erik. I actually think this is just my advice, but you know, I'm here as your friend and as your coach, Erik. You don't have to follow my advice. You do what you think. But my recommendation here would be to do some lipstick here with paint, and you know, because the colors are terrible, but not to do anything else. These workstations, in my opinion, are fine for what we're trying to do, and I think the private offices are fine for what we're trying to do. If we just pretty it up and, you know, kind of rebrand it, that's what I would do. I would do this as quickly as I can. So the stuff that I would want you to do would be fairly superficial, but important. It would just be cosmetics. All right. It's like putting lipstick on a pig. All right. That's what we're doing here. At least that's my advice. And I would get into this business very, very, very quickly. I would be running Kijiji ads probably on Monday next week. You'll be surprised, I think, at the demand you will see. Anyway, so I need you to tell me how many workstations, but just put it on a spreadsheet, how many private offices there are, and I need to know what the approximate square footage of the whole space is. And you've got, look at all this, it's perfectly set up for a co-working space. You know, you've got collating, you've got a photocopier. I don't know if the photocopier is still.
Well, it used to be a call center, right? So it kind of makes sense that they have a lot of the same.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. It's perfect for this. You have a little kitchen, which people will love. I mean, you know, you paint these walls and you put some art up, you know, some cheap art.
Do you want to go, do you want to do a visit and
absolutely. I'm you know,
that,
I am definitely coming to visit, but first we're going to do this Zoom education thing, and then once Matt is a genius, has absorbed it all, the three of us are going to do a site visit.
Actually, I won't go, but maybe you two and another person from our office could go.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, so anyway, this is fantastic, and here's a private office, and one of the things that whoever takes this office, for example, will want to do, Matt and Erik, is he or she, they will want to have, you know, their own decal to the outside world. So, you know, Prof Bruce coaching, or, you know, my great tech company. So it is a fantastic opportunity for people to have exposure inside, of course, to others who are there, but also to the outside world. That's worth a lot. And just some more pictures that you sent me. This is just perfectly set up for a co-working space. It's fantastic. Don't change a damn thing other than pretty it up. Here's another office. Just more of the same. I mean, look at this. Are the computers still there?
I couldn't tell you. I think so.
Matt, are the computers still there?
I've never seen the spot.
Technically, they unfortunately, I didn't include the furniture in the sale agreement, though. I should probably be able to get it pretty quickly, though, pretty cheap, though, because they're getting rid of it.
Yeah, I would ask them not to take it apart. I would want this. I would want all the chairs. I would want, just leave everything. Here's $15,000. Go away. And then I'm not sure what this is, Matt.
This is upstairs.
Oh, this is upstairs. Okay, it's not relevant here. And
if you look out the window,
is this upstairs as well?
I don't know. No, I think this is downstairs. You have to look at the plans. Those will tell you much more than.
Yeah. And this?
I don't know.
All right, doesn't matter. And this is obviously on the second floor, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's dynamite. I mean, you know, having a little bit of outdoor space is fantastic because we're
Yeah, that's ours.
yeah, we're cooped up for like 6 months, so I like that. And then I guess these are the bathrooms. Who's this?
This is my agent.
I think I recognize him.
Okay, could be
What's his name?
Matthew
Matthew what?
Allard.
Yeah, I know Matthew. But I mean, this is really it's just perfectly set up. I wasn't sure what this was. I guess that's electrical. This is some kind of storeroom. This might be their server room. It's fantastic. Now, Erik, if we were doing this from scratch, we would definitely take the hung ceiling out and, you know, and just go with an industrial look. But for now, don't do that.
Okay.
You actually might paint the ceiling tiles, you know, black or something like that, just to make it a little.
Yeah, I don't know if that's possible. Can you paint?
Maybe not, but you know, don't do what I'm talking about is cosmetics. To remove the hung ceiling and redo everything, don't do that.
Okay.
All right. So I had a couple of thoughts for you as well that I wanted to sort of ask you about. So what I need you to think about, Matt, is the one at the bottom here, which is, you know, just to itemize, as I said, how many workstations and how many offices you have. But I also need you to think about what the price is for each mini office and each workstation. In my opinion, each office will be something between $900 and $1,100 a month. That's what I'm guessing, right? But I need you to sort of nose around. There's going to be some other co-working spaces in Gatineau, and you need to sort of do a little bit of sleuthing, okay?
Well, this is what I kind of wanted to talk about because I believe, Erik, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a gym in that building. So kind of that might be a sell for the people that are working in there. I also have a gym membership and I think there's a few other amenities that aren't typically included in other co-working spaces.
There's a little gym and there's a little coffee shop type of thing. No, I don't have anybody to operate the coffee shop, but
So, but I need you to look around Gatineau and see what other co-working spaces are charging for a private office and for a workstation.
have you looked into this, Matt?
Yeah, I looked at it a little bit. I guess it's nothing like this pricing. I think the way they price it, and they don't really give it on their website, but it's between like they call it a space, but they show pictures of offices. It's between 250 and 450. Not sure what that includes, but I think that's the base, and then everything gets added on. If you want phone, if you want reception, if you want photocopy, if you want whatever.
So, in my opinion, there's no way they're renting a private office for $450 a month. There's no way. You'll go broke doing that.
No, I think it's a works. So they show a picture of an office, but I think it's actually just, you know, a seat somewhere in the building.
That almost certainly is correct. So what I'm guessing, Matt, is that your offices will rent between $900 and $1,200 a month, and your workstations will rent between $400 and $500 a month. That's what I'm guessing.
There's Zibi that has one co-working space, and there's also one called Centre Cham in the Centre Innovation in Gatineau. I think I sent you some websites, didn't I, Matt?
Yeah, yeah, you did.
Go take a look and see what.
And I looked at the other couple big ones, which is maybe TC. I think it's TTC or I don't something
It's
like
probably
that.
TCC.
In Ottawa?
Yeah, it's an.
They have Chateau Laurier somewhere on that place on Albert Street.
All right, well, take a look, make a little. You can go ahead and call them, tell them that you're looking for some of your company or whatever, and that you can play that string out a little bit and try to get some pricing together.
So I'm going to teach you something that is a killer competitive advantage. All right.
Okay.
All right. Can I have a drum roll, please? I'm going to teach you something that's really cool. So when we were running mini offices for a couple of decades anyway, What we did was we offered an office or a workstation. You know, it was furnished. It had a phone. You know, today it would obviously have internet. It had all these great things. And we would charge people what's called a base rent. So the base rent back then would have been, for an office, would have been probably $700 a month. And then we would charge, in addition to that, something we called a facilities charge, Matt. So we would say, okay, your base rent is $700. That gets you a furnished office, and it's really beautiful with all these cool bells and whistles. The facilities charge back then was $175 a month. So they were paying $875 for a private office. The $175 a month was to pay for internet, electricity, property taxes, reception, mail handling, you know, on and on and on, furniture, all of that. And what was interesting was our biggest competitor at the time was Minto. So we were here in Heritage Place, and a couple blocks away was Minto in another tower. And they were running something called the Bradson Center. And it was hilarious. They were charging $875 a month, and we were charging $875 a month. But when I would hear two tenants talking, one from the Bradson Center, one from Terrace Corporate Centres Limited, I would hear the guy from the Terrace Corporate Centres Limited say, "Oh, I'm only paying $700." Because people tend to not think about the facilities charge. They said, well, somebody has to pay for the, you know, the power, the property taxes, you know, all the other things that go into the facilities charge. So to the people, we were renting at $875, exactly the same as Bradson, but people only sort of saw the $700 number, and we never added them up. We obviously disclosed it. So in our lease, it would say $700 base rent, and then it would go on and on. And then somewhere down, you know, a couple of pages later, it would say facility charge $175. So we would never actually add it up in the lease. Do you understand? And by dividing it into two pieces, it was a huge competitive advantage. And even to this day, here we are like, oh my God, it's got to be 40 years later. People still haven't figured out how we did it.
Are you getting all of this, Matt?
I am.
Good.
So, I mean, so I want you to do the same thing. So when you do your pricing, okay, you're gonna break it into two pieces. You know, we're gonna charge base rent for the office of, say, $750, and we're gonna have a facilities charge of $175. The total.
Are you excited about this, Matt?
I am.
Because I've heard that there's actually a huge demand for co-working space right now. I don't know exactly why, but apparently this is a thing.
For what kind of space, Eric?
Executive office.
Oh, 100%, 100%. All right.
Regular office has been hit really hard, but apparently this stuff is doing super well. Because a lot of people don't want to work at home.
Yeah.
Don't have office space anymore. I don't know what it is. But
well, people also are tired of working from home. I mean, yeah, I have 5 kids, Eric, as you know, and I had a home office for a while when my kids were little. It drove me crazy. I love my kids, but
no, me too. It was the same thing. And I think this is why the whole thing was sort of blown out of proportion in the pandemic, is that, I don't know.
It was ridiculous. But so, I mean, I have a home office now, but my kids are in their 20s and 30s. So yeah. Anyway, this building of yours, look at the location. When I look at it, it's just, it's really an extraordinary purchase. I love it. Now, I want to show you one other. This is a mini office or co-working space that I'm involved with in Belleville. I wanted to show you this one. It's ongoing now. It's run by Loyalist College. So you remember you talked about City Collegiale? Well, this is Loyalist College. They call their business incubator or their co-working space Accelerate. And and something that I found really interesting, this was their idea, not mine, Eric, was they combine, this is downtown Belleville, they combine this co-working space with makerspace on the campus. So I don't know if there's a makerspace in Gatineau, and that was another one thing I was going to ask you to look for, Matt. Do you know what a makerspace is?
I don't.
So makerspace is it's like a co-working space, but it's focused on building stuff. It's like a you know, workshops, right? Where you can actually, you know, run your 3D printers or, you know, make stuff. So there are incubators that, you know, where you go in there and you have your laptop and you're good to go. But what Loyalist has is on the Loyalist campus, they have this beautiful makerspace. It has all the machines you could ever think about, all the tools you'd ever want. So you can go in there and build stuff. Because today what you want to cater to is you want to cater to people who are in the technology industry, but also the technology related industries where you're actually fabricating stuff. You can't fabricate stuff in the downtown Belleville core or in your building, but there will be somebody, I suspect, in Gatineau who has, you know, a series of workshops, a series of maker spaces, and you might want to affiliate with them as well. Because what you're going to find is you're going to find people who will come and say, look, I really like, I need some offices for my sales staff, for my research and development guys, but I need a makerspace and I need some apartments. So you'll be in a situation where you'll if you have a deal with somebody who's got makerspaces, if somebody's looking for office space, they refer them to you. Somebody's looking for a makerspace, you refer to them. So you become a one-stop shop.
Gotcha.
All right. So this is a really successful business in Belleville. And look at the outside signage that we've been putting on the building here. This thing is a mural, which is 20 feet high. This is a mural that we put up for Loyalist College on the side of our building. And it's kind of their mantra, right? So outside signage is really, really important. All right. You can see on the right-hand side, this is us constructing it. And here it is finished. It's huge. In their space, they have little tiny areas where you can go if you're on the phone. The last thing you want in a co-working space is people yelling on their phone. I hate that. You know, if I'm trying to do some coding and the guy next to me is on his phone talking to his girlfriend, that's not going to work. So in these spaces, what they do is they go into these enclosed areas. So they have some of these. It's like the phone booth that Superman changes in. All right. So there they go. And then they have some semi-private meeting space as well. Something else that I want you to think about, Matt, and Eric, you too, I want you to think about adding some fun stuff to your co-working space. So one of the things that we did is we put in our building a mini ping pong table. And it is hilarious how many people use it. People from all over the area come to the co-working space to play mini ping pong. And I even put a YouTube video here just to prove to you, Matt, that it actually works.
Enjoy the action-packed fun of a table tennis table without compromising space in your home with the Stiga Space Saver table. With a scaled-down size of about 6 feet long by 3 feet wide, this table delivers authentic play at regulation height, perfect for apartments, small
Bruce,
pieces, or any tight space needing an added dose of fun. The Space Saver.
Yes.
do you think it's all right if Rossmann Architecture has access to some of these amenities as well?
Right. So one of the things I was going to recommend, you may not like this, Eric, but I think you put your admin, your reception, and your tech people on the ground floor. You don't have 2 reception areas, you have 1 in the building.
Well, think about it.
Think about it. And so if I'm coming to see Rossmann Architect, which I certainly will, I come in here, I see this awesome co-working space where I can have some fun, you know, play some mini ping pong or whatever you decide.
Yeah, no, it makes sense actually, because I wouldn't put my BIM IT manager down there, but just like the IT clerk, yeah, because he'll do all the computers and stuff.
I'm telling you, you will not get rid of this co-working space. This, even if you, as I expect your firm to continue to grow, you'll grow, but you'll just buy another building. But anyway, I'm telling you, you're going to laugh at me, Matt, and you too, Eric. I put these mini ping pong tables in my apartments that I'm renting. And people love them. You can fold them up into the size of a briefcase. But my son and I play it all the time, and we love playing it. It actually works. And it's 6 feet long and 3 feet wide. So it's teensy. You can put it just about anywhere. Anyway, I wanted to show you that.
It comes full.
This is the facade of the Belleville building that we've been rebuilding for the last 2.5 years. And you can see how important outside signage is. It's not finished yet, but this is just a picture we took fairly recently as we're redoing the facade and redoing the building. This is
How'd that go for you? How the renovation of that building, how'd it go, Bruce?
it was very, 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 very time consuming. This is a
Yes.
150-year-old building, Eric, that
It looks like it might be heritage as well.
well, it's not heritage, it's historic, but it's not heritage. So it has been a grind. You know, you got to remember we were rebuilding this through the pandemic when lumber prices tripled and steel prices doubled. So it's very expensive and very time consuming, but it is a fantastic product. It's extraordinary. If you ever are in the area, I'll certainly show it to you. But anyway, this is where Loyalist is in there. They were our very first tenant. Something else that Erik has heard me talk about as well. I'm just going to go back a few slides. You have this huge parking lot here. And don't get mad at me, Erik, but if you could, what I was hoping is at least 1 or 2 parking spaces in the summertime could be given over to some fun things to do outside. Maybe you could have a little seating area outside. You could have a barbecue outside. Maybe you could play some cornhole.
I don't have any outdoor property on this one, but I have 2 other pieces of land that are like a stone's throw away that we could do stuff at.
Yeah, well, I just think I can tell you that if you put something like a mini ping pong table inside your building, and you have a couple of other things close by where people can go, they can drink a beer on a Friday afternoon, they can cook a burger, they can play a couple of simple games. I'm telling you, tenants that play together stay together. They're happier, they'll pay you more money, and they'll stay longer. And it goes for families too.
Okay.
Something else I'm sure you've already thought of is I use everywhere. I use these really, really great glass whiteboards. You can see one right behind me, I think. Hang on a second. Can you see that behind me?
Yep.
It is fantastic. They look great. Oops. They look great. And I tell you, Erik, it's weird. By putting these whiteboards up, people will fight over them. Oh, that's my board. Well, it's everybody's board, but no, that's my board. And it's part of their creativity. All right, enough of that. I also ran another co-working space called Manchester Station. And the tagline there, I don't really like it, was serious co-working space. And this was for Lee Valley Tools. So this is the Lee Valley Tools building. And it had some free stuff like free outdoor parking. Some indoor parking was available at an extra cost. And it was called Manchester Station. And it doesn't look a whole lot different from your space, Erik. It had a nice meeting room, a nice reception area, and it had a ton of these workstations, which you can see here on the top right.
Mm-hmm.
And it had really funky, cool space. This is the floor plan. And I don't know how many workstations it had, but it looks like it had about 22 workstations. And then we had some of these library kiosks that I mentioned earlier, and then we had some private offices, right? And here's something else that we did. We did a big part of our profitability came from sponsorship. So we would name everything. We would name an office after BDC, the Business Development Bank of Canada. We had one workstation that was called the Microsoft BizSpark station. We had the GGFL Chartered Accountants corridor. We actually would have signage on the floors, Matt, saying this is so you didn't have workstation number 792. You had the Microsoft workstation, and your location was on the GGFL corridor. I mean, we would sell these sponsorships for $500 a year. Some of them much more. We had the NRC Industrial Research Assistance Program boardroom, if you could believe it. And so some of them were $450 a year for sponsorship, and some of them were more. So we would add a few tens of thousands of dollars a year to our bottom line. Our co-working space at 900 Morrison Drive in Ottawa was 4,800 square feet. I don't know how big this ground floor is. Do you know, Eric?
The ground floor of it's 8,700.
Wow. So it's big. That's good. I don't think we need to go through that. And we were able to run this particular space with one person. We didn't have a staff of 5. We had this young woman, she ran this place. She was paid $22 an hour, you know, back in the day. And she ran the whole place for us. And here are some of the numbers we were able to achieve with this. It's quite a small space. We were able to generate about $275,000 a year in revenue, and we had about $100,000 in profit. It was a 38% margin, which is not bad. These are just other pictures of the space. I won't go through all of this. You know, one of the things that you're going to have to think about is some other things that are not necessarily very obvious. You will have some people who will want to have virtual offices. And back then, I think we were selling memberships of like $95 a year, which gave you some, you know, some utility. There are a lot of women entrepreneurs who do not want to give out their home address, right? So that's not necessarily something that would concern you, Matt, or Eric, or me. But a lot of the young women that I work with will not do that. It's not a good idea to, you know, if you're running a business, to put your home address on there if you're a young woman. So they get a virtual office, you know, for maybe $85 a month or something like that. And we would have, you know, 30 or 40 of these people, right? So it adds quite a bit of money to your revenues every month. And
that is pretty good, actually, because just the yeah.
Well, some men did it.
Just the mailbox and
yeah, they get, you know, like if you have
conference
a
room.
package, you know, if Amazon's delivering a package and you live, you know, 4 blocks away, if you're a young woman with a startup, or even a fellow with a startup, you know, you can't be home all the time if you're living in an apartment. So they would buy a virtual office. Today the numbers would be bigger, Matt, but you're going to need to think about all the different kind of things that you can do with your space to improve your revenues. I'm going to tell you something about modern arena design, which is brand new or relatively new. And for example, now people are creating arenas and stadiums where they sell more tickets than they have seats, and it's not standing room. Here's how it works. You have in many of these new arenas and stadiums, and we've retrofitted the Canadian Tire Centre to do this. You have a sort of a club here, and then you have some seats here. But you sell far more members to the club than you have seats. And the reason you do that is that people belong to these clubs where they can go buy a drink, they can get something to eat, because they want to socialize. The game is kind of secondary. Do you understand? So today you might have a 20,000 seat arena, but you're actually selling 24,000 tickets. That's what this is. Do you understand, Matt?
Yep.
And it's really important to your profitability.
I don't understand, Bruce. Maybe you can come again, because I don't get it.
Which part?
The arena and how this applies to here.
All right. So if you go to modern arenas,
Yeah.
You'll find, and Canadian Tire Centre has this now, you'll find that in behind, you know, so the seats are here. All right. That's your rake. And then behind you have a club. The club has all kinds of cool seating.
Okay, so you're not talking about the lodges here.
No, exactly. It's just.
Okay, I thought you were talking about the lodges in terms of the clubs.
No. The lodges stay exactly the same, right? They're private suites where you have 18 seats and you have 18 tickets. That's fine.
So what kind of club? I wasn't aware that there were clubs.
Yeah, so there's a number of them there, and you can belong. And, you know, it includes drinks, it includes food. It's like those all-inclusives that you go to in the Dominican Republic. And it's a fantastic thing because people really want to socialize. And if you want to socialize with certain people, you do it at a hockey game. And maybe you'll sit in the seat for, if it's a 3-hour game, you'll sit in the seats for an hour off and on. But for a couple hours, you know, and there's TV screens all over, so you can still see the action. But, you know, if you and I, Eric, and Matt, and a few other Rossmann architect folks went and belong to that club, we would almost certainly spend at least an hour of the game in the club as opposed to in the seats. So you don't need as many seats as you can sell members, and this is very similar. All right, let's keep going. And so you have some simple things like membership, then you have some simple things like virtual offices, and these are all things that need to go onto your price sheet. All right, and I'm going to send you this because if I were to go through every detail of this today, Matt, first of all, you wouldn't necessarily be able to absorb it all. And I want you to go through this slide deck on your own. All right. So I put in here pretty much everything and the kitchen sink. And then I even put in some stuff that we use for the sponsorship packages, how to get sponsorships. You know, it's something, there'll be lots of people who want to be associated with Rossmann Architect and with, you know, Centre Montcalm, if that's what you call it. And, you know, then they can sign up. And here's the Manchester Station price card, memberships, license fees, virtual offices, hot desking, offices, you know, it just goes on. Just having a business address. Many people just want a business address. And back then it would be $45 a month just to have a business address that wasn't your home. All of these numbers would have to be revised today. And again, you can see all of the different things that we were charging here on the screen. And you notice how we broke it down into the base rent and facilities charge? We also had people that were affiliated with us that would provide other services like bookkeeping. A lot of these small startups need accounting, bookkeeping, and other services, banking, obviously. All right. So we even had what's called a restoration fee, which was really basically a cleaning fee. So when they left, they still had to pay us money. You know, it's like Airbnb. I mean, if you go and book something through Airbnb, there's a goddamn cleaning fee, and you got to pay that because somebody's got to clean it. And then we were also, you know, renting out our boardroom space. I won't go through all of this. And I just got all of this stuff in here for you. So you can see all.
This is great. It's great.
Yeah. So Matt, if you're going to be in this business, there's quite a bit of depth that you need to get into, right? I mean, you really need to understand it at the molecular level because it is a profitable business, but you need to know some of the tricks of the trade. And that's what Eric asked me to do today. All right. So I need you to study this, but you're not on your own. Eric has asked me to support you. So when you have questions, the best way to get a hold of me is email. And if you have questions, you know, fire away, as I know this business pretty well. And once you've kind of gotten to the next stage of you've sort of absorbed it, then we're going to do an on-site walk around. Okay.
All right.
But you can see all of the detail that we went into. And then I put in here something called a license agreement. Eric, we're going to need a notary or a Quebec-based lawyer to review this, all right? Because this is something we used in Ontario, and I know Quebec has very different rules and regulations.
100%, but I don't think we're ready yet, right?
No. I just put it in here because it's a placeholder. So what we did was we did not do sublets, we did license agreements. There is a significant legal difference between a sublet and a license. A license doesn't give somebody the same rights as a sublet. So what, at least in Ontario, my lawyers for the last 40 years, all of them, have advised us not to do sublet agreements on mini offices or co-working space, but to do a license agreement because they're easier to get rid of somebody who's a problem. All right, but we need to find out what the rules are in Quebec. All right, so I put a license agreement in here. I'm not going to go through it. We'll be here for the whole day. All right, so that gives you a first pass of what I think could be done here. And if Erik is accurate, and the building is 8,000 square feet on the ground floor, we can do a lot.
All right. Super.
So, Bruce, just to clarify, it seems like everything you've talked about are I don't know, short rental. You rent this office for a month or 10 months or whatever the case may be, but it's exclusively yours. I assume the workstation when you were
That's
doing
right.
it was exclusively yours. Where I think maybe now there might be a model where you rent you rent your slot.
So I understand that, and I'm not saying no to that, but what I have found, because we tried that, I found that was not successful. And the reason for that is human beings are incredibly territorial. So what happened was, if you have, say, 30 workstations and they're hoteling them, right? So you just come in and you take any one that is available. That's a great idea in principle, because if you have 30 workstations, you can probably sell 40 of them because not everybody's there every day, right? So you can make more money that way. But we found that was a failure. And the reason for that is, let's say the three of us, you, Matt, me, and Erik, were all in Centre Montcalm, and you're in this workstation pretty much every day, and I sit next to you because you're my pal, and Erik sits next to me because he likes both of us. And we go there every day. We're all there together. We're in different businesses, but we shoot the breeze. Then we come back, we come the next day, and some stranger is sitting where I used to sit, and you and Erik have now got a third person sitting close to you that you don't really know, and it turns out you don't really like him. And people will personalize their workstations within a couple of days. They'll put up a picture of their wife, their kid, their husband, their partner. They'll put other stuff, little knickknacks on their workstations. They'll have a drawer that locks, and they'll put stuff.
You're basically defining why I think a lot of these hybrid non-assigned work seating in government and other companies is not going to work out. I think
it doesn't work. I can tell you that.
I think it's fine to work to have I think flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
I think is great,
Yep.
and I think it's actually going to become a necessity and a standard. But this whole hybrid, and we're going to save on like for me to show up at a different desk every day, it's a big freaking no.
No, I'm with you on that, Erik. I wouldn't do it, Matt. I think it will fail, and there are fist fights over this, and which you can't accept. I mean, you have to have a zero tolerance policy for violence. I mean, you can't have any.
And it's also like, yeah, I think it's very hard to manage that, like having hoteling like that.
I wouldn't do it. We did try it a couple of times in a couple of experiments, and it was a terrible failure. So we abandoned that. But that's my experience. And I would rather charge a higher price, but that's my workstation, than I come in and I have to work somewhere else, because human beings are not only territorial, they're also creatures of habit.
Yeah.
And I'm comfortable because I've got Matt on one side of me, I got Erik on one side, I got my buddies there, different companies, but we tell jokes and we know each other, and it's an easy, nice environment.
It's also, there's just something about you said creatures of habit. It's just getting into the flow,
Correct.
getting into the work zone. When you walk into your office and it says ready to go, it just works. You're not going to get into that zone in a new place, and it just doesn't. Yeah.
Okay, what's the next question, Matt?
No, I think that was my only big one, actually.
Okay, well, that was a good one, and I'm glad you brought it up. So what I think we'll do, we've been at it just over an hour now. We'll call it here. I'll send you, both of you, the slide deck. Matt, you should go through it again, maybe a couple of times, just a couple of times, so it gets into your head, and you work on the spreadsheet, just a simple spreadsheet, and you work on your price card, and you work on your competitive analysis, what's going on in Gatineau. Once you have that, send that to me, and I will do an ROI spreadsheet for your review, Matt, and also for Erik's review, so we know what we're getting into. All right, because I know the economics of this pretty well, but I need those three things from you, okay? And then after that, I'll come visit, and we'll go for a walk around. All right.
Great. But
and
when do you take possession, Eric?
Well, hopefully in September or late August. We'll see. It
Yeah.
all depends on the banks and stuff like that. The banks are the big bitch in this.
Have you talked to the BDC about this?
Yes,
And
they're requiring bigger and bigger down payments. It's really stupid.
how much are they asking for?
25%.
Yeah, I thought it might have been 30 or 35.
So we might get a second or get an investor. So we'll figure it out. It's just gone are the days where you could do it for 0 to 5% like I did in the past.
But Eric, if you don't mind, you should ask them to leave the furniture and the equipment there.
Okay.
All right, guys, it's been a pleasure. And one other thing we're going to do once we have talked through this is you're going to reach back to me, Matt. We're going to talk about proper property management. Eric's asked me to give you another lecture on proper property management because there's some stuff that we're doing in property management on the residential side as well as the commercial side that is really good. All right. So
Awesome. Yeah, that's great.
I want you to put that in your list of things to do, but it's up to you to come back to me on these things. Okay. I have 2,500. I have 2,500 clients that I coach, and if I had to remember all the stuff that you're doing, and 2,499 others, I couldn't do it. All right.
Yep.
Thanks,
So
Bruce.
you got to take pity on the 71-year-old. You got to be my memory. All right, gentlemen. Eric, it's a pleasure to see you.
Super. Thank you very much, Bruce.
Thank you.
Thank you.